Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Phil Taylor Jones Show. Today's show is more an informational type show, a little slight departure from the shows we usually do. I'm Phil Taylor Jones, your host, and let's jump into this little bit of information right now. You know, I got to thinking the other day, worst case scenario, what if Republicans lose this campaign and a Democrat actually gets in the White House? Well, I know I don't like Hillary Clinton on any form, any way, anyhow. I would not want her to be president of these good old United States of America. Well, there's only one alternative, and that would be Bernie together Sanders. Now, I know that he is far and away from the establishment. It's kind of hard to tell whether he is, because he's running on the Democratic ticket. Now, in this country, where we're supposed to be so free and so brave, I find it kind of strange that there are only two major parties, and if you are from some other party, like an independent, you're kind of left out to dry. Now, at the onset of this campaign, there was also an independent running. Her name is Dr. Jill Stein. Now, she broke her candidacy on this show on telly called Democracy Now! Now, that was back when all the other candidates, threw their hats in the ring. Since then, I have heard nor seen Dr. Jill Stein. I don't even think she's in the running anymore. At the onset of her hat throwing, she was talking about the last time around she tried to run for president, that she wanted to be on someone's debate stage. She tried the Republicans, turned down. She tried the Democrats, turned down. So she started to sue them. She filed a lawsuit against, I think it was both parties, for the discrimination. That's not right. In a country where we're supposed to be so democratic, why isn't there room for independence on any debate stage? Oh, well, they're not really Republicans and they're not Democrats, so they're out there in limbo land? What if it's a good candidate that really wants to do something to help the country? What if it's a good candidate that wants to create jobs and to protect us, has a very good plan that would, secure our shores? What if it's a very good candidate that wants to secure the borders to stop any kind of refugees or aliens from coming in? What if? Okay, so now we've got an independent and one Bernie together, Sanders, but he's running on the Democratic ticket. Now, as I said, he's far and away from the mainstream, has been so ever since he took public office. Now, if there's one good thing you can say about old Bernie is, from the very days when he was even younger and more vibrant looking than he is now, he was preaching the same philosophy that the United States and this society should not belong to that 1% of billionaires and millionaires. He's been preaching that. He has been a stalwart, never changing, resolute with that philosophy. Democratic socialism. Now, I know when the word socialism comes up, people cringe. Oh, God, no. Visions of the old USSR come to mind. It's just this rigid society, this rigid form of government where everybody lives in gray buildings. Everybody walks. Those few that have cars, they're all black. I went to Russia once when I was a kid. My grandmother, or at least our grandmother, wanted me to go over there. That was way before the exec was born. So he missed out. We went over there, and she wanted me to see the contrast. That was the wonderful thing about our grandmother. She just wouldn't tell you something. She showed you, so that you would get a full understanding of what it was that she was trying to convey. So we went over there. She said, well, baby, don't expect it to be the same way it is here at home, because it's not. And you're going to see that. I'm not going to tell you. You're going to get a chance to see it for yourself. So when we went over there, you know, back at that time, I was a bit of a shutterbug, and I like to take pictures. I pulled out my camera. The KGB was on me like a tick on a dog. What do you take picture of? What do you have camera? You know, it was horrible. And, you know, I said, well, I am a visitor here, and I just wanted to take a few pictures if it's okay. And they instructed me what was good to take pictures of and what was not good to take pictures of. They didn't play around, okay? They can come here and take pictures of bloody everything, but you go to their country, it's different. As I alluded to, it was different over there. All the buildings were gray. They were horrible looking. I said, is every place here like a prison? No, those are just regular apartment buildings or apartment complexes. The cars weren't very different. They all looked alike, and they were either gray or black or white. It was really horrible. And then I really began to understand why Russia didn't advertise for you to come there. They don't want you there, you know, or at least the USSR as it was back in those days. And then my grandmother and I, we decided to go on a shopping trip just for some groceries, because we had leased a little place. It had a kitchenette, so you could have food and cook and stuff. It was a little different from your average run-of-the-mill motel or hotel. So we go on a shopping spree. Now, you know how it is here at home. You go grocery shopping, you go to your neighborhood grocery store, and you get everything you need right there. Well, at that time, it wasn't that way in Russia. It took you a whole day to get the things you needed. And here's the trip. You want to go get some meat? You go to the meat store. You want to go get some produce, like vegetables? I'm saying like vegetables. You go to another store. If you want to get fruits, you go get to another store. If you want to get dairy products, you got to go another place across town. You want bread, again. So, I mean, nothing was like in one spot. And so I said, I asked one of the shopkeepers, I said, why are your stores like this? And she said, oh, you come from America. I said, yeah. And she said, oh yeah, you have good store. You have thing in everything one store. I said, yeah, not like this where you got to go, all over the place. It was very different. You saw the KGB everywhere, marching about, watching you hawkishly. It wasn't a very nice place to be. So when the word socialism comes up, a lot of people gravitate to that. Well, Bernie together, Sanders, is talking about democratic socialism. And again, people cringe and say, I don't know about that. Well, my question to those people would be, how is the present system working out for you? Do you mean to tell me that you like a government that shoves things down your throat, tells you who you have to live by, whether you want to or not, gives you a medical system or a healthcare system that is the bunk, push jobs away from the hands of willing workers, come up with stupid, asinine laws that would make a dog puke? How's that working out for you? We have no say in anything as it is. Our most precious right that is given to us as a member of a country, the ability to vote, has now been tainted by Democrats. When you go to your polling place, do you pull out your ID and prove to these people that you're voting in front of who you are? No. They tell you, oh, I don't need that. How do I know? I've done it. I've been there. I pulled out my ID to show the person who was, preparing. Oh, you'll need that. Put that away. I said, why wouldn't I need that? Don't you need to know that I'm Phil Taylor Jones and that Phil Taylor Jones is the one that's casting this ballot? Oh no, we don't need that. I said, well, you should. Because what if someone else had gotten my voter book and what have you, and came down here and said that they were Phil Taylor Jones? Then somebody would have cast a fraudulent ballot. Capitalism, supposed to be the big, big, wonderful thing. Well, maybe back in the day it was. You know, you should be able to free enterprise and all that sort of thing. But you look at where capitalism has taken us now. As Bernie does say, the top 1% of the millionaires and billionaires are running everything. These crooked banks are making bank off the backs of us, the rank and file, who do most of the living and buying and purchasing and dying in this country. Those of you who own homes and have been there for 30 or more years. Go back to those 30 or 40 more years and then come up to where you are now. Are you loving it? Those of you who rent or lease apartments, you probably heard me say many a time on the show, when I was a kid growing up in Michigan, Ypsilanti, Michigan, my mother and I rented an apartment, 2 bedrooms, big bedrooms, den, kitchen, balcony, dedicated parking, laundry facilities, air conditioning, pet friendly, $175 a month, which our grandmother used to tease us about because the home that I grew up in a suburb of Detroit was only $124 a month with tax included. And this place was a veritable mansion. It had 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, sat on 2.5 acres of land, had every, feature of a pretty nice house at that time. $124 per month, tax included. You could buy a car. We bought a big fancy Pontiac Grand Prix in the year 1963. $49, $95, $99 out the door. All the toys included in that car for the time period, which were power windows, brakes, power steering, air conditioning, big engine in it, just a nice car. $5,000. Insurance for that car, full coverage for that car. $247 a year, full coverage. Gas. My grandmother always used to tease my grandfather, he'd do $2 worth. Well, gas was very cheap. So $2 just about filled the car up. And she would say, oh my God, just give the man the extra $2 or $1 and fill it up. You didn't need that much money. You could go to the store, get all the supplies you needed, food, what have you. To spend $100, $150, you would need a 24-foot truck to possibly bring all the food home. What has happened? Greed, mixed in with stupidity, is the degradation of any nation. And good Lord knows we've got a lot of greedy, stupid capitalists in this country. Now, I remember when the $15 per hour minimum wage was at the forefront. Oh man, you should have heard people shooting it down. Want to begrudge someone $15 an hour, which still would not basically raise you over the poverty line. Things have gotten outrageously expensive. Why? Because of greed and stupidity. Decisions made at the top level that are supposed to trickle down and benefit those at the very bottom? I don't think so. If your job is not satisfying you or is not taking care of you, you change your line of work. Having said that, that's what I mean about this capitalist society. It's not working anymore. It's just working for a handful, and the vast majority is going lacking. In any political action, they're talking about the middle class. Oh, the middle class, and the upper class, and the middle class. They never mention those that are on their knees, the lowest class. We have approximately 20 million or more. Maybe that's a very liberal or maybe a very conservative figure. 20 million or more on the streets, including our veterans. How is capitalism helping them, this society by which we're so crazy about? How is that helping them? You figure a soldier goes to war supporting us in a way in which they are putting the most precious gift that they have on the line for the preservation of this country, for the preservation of our freedoms, and that's their lives. Yet they come back, not the person that they went over there as, they come back with PTSD, or whatever the acronym, the stress syndrome, post-stress disorder. They come back with that. If they're lucky, with only that. Some of them come back with missing limbs. Some of them come back with such devastating injuries that they're relegated to life in the hospital or in some permanent care home. Or they end up on our streets. That is a travesty. Someone who puts their life on the line in service to this country, upon being discharged honorably, should be just as a very famous singer has come up with a song called Living Life Like It's Golden. They should be living their lives like it's golden, because that is the most honorable thing you can do. Greed, stupidity. You're going to have all these people on the streets suffering, starving, cold, hungry, in need of medical, mental attention. You leave them there, sweep them under the rug as though they don't exist, but then you'll beat on the tom-toms for some foreigner to come over. Oh, because they're a refugee. They're hitting hard times, and they're from war-torn countries, or they're being accosted by drug cartels, or they're suffering from domestic violence in their country. So we need to accept them into our country. How dare you? How dare you? And you leave our citizens, our veterans on the streets. You allow these big companies like Starbucks, McDonald's, and all these big conglomerates and their CEOs to live off the backs of the workers who are producing product for them every day. They're riding around in multi-million-dollar jets, living in multi-million-dollar units or dwellings, 65-room mansions, riding around in yachts and just living a life of Riley off the backs of the workers. But then they don't want to get up off of $15 an hour. A lot of them don't even want to get up off of health benefits. When I started my education, I worked out of a Los Angeles Unified School District, second largest school district in the country. I started out as an educational aide. 3 hours a day work, no benefits, barely benefits of permanency, which is sick leave, bereavement leave, and you got a personal day off. Just barely that. No health care benefits. Why? Because of stupidity and greed, even in a bureaucratic society. They're kind of binging on capitalism. It was said, I don't know if the language has changed, but back at the time when I was working, if you worked 4 or more hours per day, you were entitled not only to benefits of permanency, but to fringe benefits like health care, eye care, vision care, all that sort of thing. So what did the district do? These people are not stupid. They know the law, and they work very, very well within it to break you down as a worker. Okay, 4 or more hours, we break them down to 3 hours so that we don't have to pay. Well, let me tell you, for anybody that thinks that way, sick employees are not productive. If you don't want to provide at least health care for that employee and their family, at least give it to the employee. But what they do is they find a way to scrape off as much money as they can to increase their bottom line. Okay, as we stand with the system we have, the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, depends and collects funds known as income tax. Let's think about that. Income tax. That's tax that's, generated by income. Duh. Well, if you've driven all of the jobs out of the country and people are unemployed, you can't get your taxes. Coupled with all of these totally asinine programs that you come up with to skirt and save and scrape off money, there goes your debt to the tune of $20 trillion soon to be. What happened? How did it get that high? I remember 30 some odd years ago, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, when some of our congressmen here from California, Henry Waxman, went to Congress, the national debt was low. It wasn't even $1 million. What happened? Greed and stupidity in this capitalistic society. Let me just think ahead, just in case we don't get a Republican in there. As I said before, definitely don't want Hillary Clinton. I'd soon see, and as bad as I hate these little creatures, I'd just as soon see a rat in the White House. What am I saying? There is a rat in the White House. His name's O'Bastard. Well, I mean a four-legged rat in the White House as president, then her. So then there's only one alternative, if he could be lucky enough to get it, and that's to give up Bernie Sanders. So I went and I looked at his capitalistic, or his socialism to see, hey, could this be feasible? So I went to a place, it's called, if you'd like to look it up, the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA. You can go online and tap that in, and you can come up with it and, kind of look for yourself. Now, it has about roughly 10, 11 questions or so, and the answers to each. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing because it'd be very lengthy, but, just think about this and try to keep an open mind, because it could happen, and either you evolve or you disintegrate. And I don't plan on disintegrating, so I'd like to evolve. I'd like to have more of a say in what goes on in my life in this country. Case in point, and let me just get this out before I go over this socialist stuff. Can you think back to when they were talking about having these refugees come over and live with us? Now, we know that that's a bad idea because we don't know what we're getting in this refugee package. It could be some very needy people that really need help, or it could be a liberal sprinkling of terrorists, ISIS or what have you, stuck up in there ready to do us bodily harm. So we don't know. It's a big, big question mark. Now, O'Bastard and his band of idiots have since then shoved that down our throats. We've got tens of thousands of them all over this country, possibly in a neighborhood near you. Were we even just asked, do we personally want this to happen? Or did this government just shove it down our throats like they're used to shoving stuff down our throats like O'Bastard care? I don't know about you folks, but I would have liked to at least been asked by the people that represent me. My state senator, my state's congressman, hold a town hall meeting. Say, hey, Phil, what we're proposing to do is have these people from Syria and other war-torn countries come and live here in the United States. How do you feel about that? Say, well, Mr. Senator or Mrs. Congressperson, I think it stinks. You don't have to have them come live near you because you're so far, in the upper echelon that it won't matter. But it's already stressful for me just to deal with the regular foreigners that you let come in here. Now you're going to at least let people come in that could possibly kill me? and my neighbors, my brother. We've had enough of that. I say no. Other people from the town hall meeting join and say no. Then that representative can go back at least and say, well, my constituency says hell no. We don't want them. And if you get that going on all over the country, maybe that might make a difference. That's socialism, or part of it. But you got these big governmental muckety-mucks making decisions that they don't have to face. They don't have to face it, but we do. Every bloody day of our lives, they make that crap, and we have to walk through it and be stinking because of it. All right, one of the major questions was, does socialism mean that the government will own and run everything? Answer. Democratic socialists do not want to create an all-powerful government bureaucracy. But we do not want big corporate bureaucracies to control our society either. Rather, we believe that social and economic decisions should be made by those whom they most affect. And what's wrong with that? Today, corporate executives who answer only to themselves and a few wealthy stockholders and or stakeholders make basic economic decisions affecting millions of people. Resources are used to make money for capitalists, rather than meet human needs. Does that sound familiar? We believe that workers and consumers who are affected by economic institutions should own and control them. What about all these jobs that are leaving? If the workers themselves had some say-so over that, maybe the jobs would still be here. Social ownership could take many forms, such as worker-owned cooperatives or publicly owned enterprises managed by workers and consumer representatives. Democratic socialists favor as much decentralization as possible, while the large concentrations of capital in industries such as energy, steel, and others may necessitate some form of state ownership. Many consumer goods industries might be best run as cooperatives. Democratic socialists have long rejected the belief that the whole economy should be centrally planned. We believe that democratic planning can shape major social investments like mass transit, housing, and energy. Market mechanisms are needed to determine the demand for many consumer goods. Here in California, that is very much needed, because I'm going to tell you, during that housing debacle some years ago, around 2008, 2007, it became hard to buy a house because of all of these upside down mortgages and all this kind of crap. To this day, it's a little easier to get a house, but then not that easy. So if you can't buy a house, what's your next best alternative? Lease or rent an apartment. So it's a landlord's paradise, because they can up the rents, up the lease prices on these cracker boxes, and you're stuck paying them. As I've alluded to on other shows, I've got a lot of acquaintances out there. They've got no heat in their apartment. No heat. They have to heat the apartment by turning on the stove or get some kind of little spatial heater. The building is in disrepair. Things are not there. Some buildings, even to this date, with all of the handicap accessible stuff that's been going on by law, some of these buildings are still not handicap accessible. There's vermin in apartments. Bed bugs, rats, mice, roaches, you name it. Oh, and here's the kicker. got a friend, real close friend, lives in an apartment like that. Wants to have a dog. They don't allow dogs, but they got plenty of bed bugs. If we had a system by which we could determine what goes on in our cities, our states, as far as housing and all this kind of thing, maybe we wouldn't have so many people on the streets. If big people weren't so big, little people wouldn't be so little. I know this is going a little long in the tooth, but I just wanted to get a few more of these out of the way. Says, hasn't socialism been discredited by the collapse of communism in the USSR and Eastern Europe? Answer. Socialists have been among the hardest critics of authoritarian communist states. Just because their bureaucratic elites call them socialists did not make it so. They also call their regimes democratic. Democratic socialists always oppose the ruling party states of those societies, just as we oppose the ruling of classes of capitalist societies. We applaud the democratic revolutions that have transformed the former communist bloc. However, the improvement of people's lives requires real democracy without ethnic rivalries and or new forms of authoritarianism. Democratic socialists will continue to play a key role in that struggle throughout the world. Moreover, the fall of communism should not blind us to injustices at home. We cannot allow all radicalism to be deemed as communist. That suppression of dissent and diversity undermines America's ability to live up to its promise of equality of opportunity, not to mention the freedoms of speech and assembly. I would urge you to go to this site once again. It's called DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, and read all of the bullets, because if I read them all, we'd be here for hours, and you don't have that kind of time, and I don't have that kind of patience. So go to this site, check it out. A lot of what they're saying is a lot of what is fueling such a reverence behind Bernie, together, Sanders, and Donald Trump. Because although Trump is not really talking about socialism, a lot of what he wants to do and what he says he wants to have happen in this country is basically the same thing. He wants the power to go back to the people, not to the fat cat government, certainly not fat cat Wall Street, all these big banks are, controlling what you can do and what you can't do. Our social security system is a shambles because of government and greed and stupidity, more so stupidity. Because I say this, anytime a foreigner comes in here fresh off the boat and goes to their local SSA office and 6 weeks later come out with a big fat check that rivals anything that American SSA recipients are getting, that's stupid. That is very stupid and should be cut out quick, fast, and in a hurry. So, we need to take a look at this, because capitalism, it works for some. Some are so rich they can buy a whole island for themselves. While people are on the streets, our veterans, hungry, holding up signs. Please, feed me, give me something so that I can eat. I was a veteran in the war in Iraq. That is shameful. Shameful that our veterans and our citizens are on the streets. Do you still want to hang on to capitalism? Or would you want to try something possibly new where everybody can get a little piece of the pie? Because as it stands right now, there are a lot of people in our country suffering. They're not even getting crumbs. We thank you so much for giving us your time this morning. In our crazy, mixed up society, capitalist or socialist, we will strive to try to maintain a little bit of our happiness I want you to take care and stay safe and join us for another edition of the Phil Taylor Jones Show. Thanks, and bye-bye.